5 big questions you'll be facing in 2018. This is the Athletic Scholarship Podcast, episode number 78. Welcome to the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. I'm Jon Fugler, athletic scholarship coach and a dad of 2 scholarship athletes. I'm also the CEO of Recruit Me, a podcaster, author, and speaker. And the sponsor of this show is the Athletic Scholarship Playbook, my new book. It's a complete college recruiting roadmap for high school athletes and parents. It's available on Amazon, of course, and as an ebook, a Kindle ebook, as well as paperback and audiobook. A lot of people grabbing it starting this year, and I would highly recommend this if you're just getting started in this process. This podcast is a 15 minutes that will change your scholarship future. So I dig in and give you takeaways you can use immediately. You can find episodes on my website at recruitme.com, but it's easier on an app, the Apple Podcast app, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeart, and others. I'm offering a free chapter from my book, The Athletic Scholarship Playbook, and I would encourage you to go get that at recruitme.com. That's recruit-me.com. Got a link to that in my show notes. Well, January is well underway. And I think all the resolutions we had are behind us, right? Oh boy, but it's not about resolutions, as I shared in the last episode, and I want to continue along those lines to prepare you for the months ahead, in fact, the year ahead, because we've got to be thinking wisely, we got to be acting wisely, we got to maximize our time. As you've already found out, this year has started, and it's a whirlwind for you. A lot of the plans that you had, you're going, how am I going to fit these in? I've got that same problem. I have 4 goals set up for this year. And if I could hit 3 of them, that would be successful. But I'm finding that realistically, probably that first one and maybe the second one I'll hit. Maybe 1.5 because of capacity. We tend to set goals beyond what our capacity is time-wise and maybe even our expertise level. And we set too many of them. So we have to narrow them down. And if that's you, hey, I know exactly where you are, because here we are, not even 2 weeks in to this year, and I'm finding that I probably was, my vision was too big for my, what do they say? The appetite is too big for our stomach. My eyes were too big for my stomach, and that's what it is for me here, and maybe it is that way for you. So I encourage you to maybe narrow it down. But in this episode, what I want to deal with is 5 questions that you'll be facing this year in 2018. Big ones, big questions that I want to lay out to you, because you're going to have to answer these at some point this year. So let's get right into it. And that first question is my son or daughter good enough for a scholarship? You know, when it's one of those questions that maybe is in the back of your mind, you're thinking about it, and you're wondering, are they really good enough to get that scholarship? Or is this just a dream that will never become reality? And that might be just gnawing at you. It's okay. It's good. You've got to be able to answer that. I want to give you some encouragement that if your son or daughter can compete at the next level, I do believe, and I've seen it, that he or she can receive an athletic scholarship. It's not just going to happen, of course. You got to go through the process, got to go through those steps that I have been sharing with you on this podcast and in the book and everywhere I go. But is my son or daughter good enough? If they can compete at the next level, yes, I believe they can get an athletic scholarship. There's so many opportunities out there, not just the D1 top schools that we're talking about, that maybe you or your athlete has his or her eyes set on, but really open things up and look at those opportunities that may be at the D1, D2, D3 level. You've got NAIA as well as NCAA. In some cases, starting off at a JC is the right way to go, because these 4-year schools, they recruit heavily out of the junior colleges. Open up your mind. Don't be thinking narrowly. I always say cast your net wide. So I don't know if your son or daughter has the talent to compete at the next level, but it is something that you're going to have to answer. And I really do believe that you're probably have more doubts about that, when in reality, they could get that scholarship if they can compete at the next level. So you need to find that out. I've mentioned that in I think a couple episodes ago, that get somebody who is a neutral party, high school coach, club coach, maybe even a local college coach that you might know. Get some evaluations, maybe at camps, great places to get evaluations. And they can, through their experience, especially college coaches, they can let you know where your son or daughter might fit in. We went through that with our boys. We had a local coach who evaluated their ability, and I had to ask him directly, what do you think? Can these guys compete at your school? And he said, well, I'm not going to be recruiting them, but they would fit at this level. And he explained a little bit more to me where they might fit in. And that's the kind of honest conversation that you should welcome. Second question, do we have time to pursue a scholarship? Scholarships are not going to just come after you. They're not just going to come after your son or daughter. You have to go out and get it. I talk all about that, the fact that you have to take the initiative, keep taking the initiative. You have to market your son or daughter. That scholarship isn't just going to walk in the door, show up on the field, and show up at the school or show up at your home. It's not just going to happen. It does take time. That's why I wrote a whole book about it, going through all the steps and what's involved in the scholarship. If you use your time wisely, you can get this job done. Unfortunately, most families do so much, and it's a scattered approach. They run out of steam too, and they don't get the job done, and they don't have the time. But you're going to be asking yourself, once you dive into this, man, do we really have the time to pursue a scholarship? And my response is, use your time wisely, do the proper steps to get that done. Third question you'll be asking this year, how can I get my athlete on coaches' radars? Kind of a follow-up to number 2, where the scholarships aren't just going to come walking in the door. Coaches aren't just going to show up and watch your son or daughter compete. That doesn't happen. You have to go out and take the initiative. So how can you get your athlete on coaches' radars? Well, one, contact the coaches. The intro packet that I talk about, the letter and the profile, get those out to as many coaches as you can. Get that video done so you have something to show the coaches when they contact you. Most of them won't be able to come and see your son or daughter compete right away. You got to have something visual for them, and that's why the video is important. So be equipped. Take the initiative, contact the coaches through email, through letter, through phone call, and get out there. That's how you get on a coach's radar. They love it because you're showing them, and this needs to come from the athlete, you're showing them that you're interested in the school. And that is a big deal for them. It's not like they're going to have to talk you into being interested. You've taken that step. That's how you get on coaches' radars. And that's when you start doing that, the chatter begins, that they hear about your son or daughter. The fourth question you're going to have to face this year, big question this year, how much will we have to spend to get recruited? And that's a biggie. How much is this thing going to cost? I mean, Johnny, talking about camps, we have talked about showcases, talk about tournaments, talk about travel is really, really big, and that's going to be something that will cost a lot. You add this up, and you're saying, I will have spent as much as we will receive in a scholarship by the time I get done with this if I send my kid out to be seen by coaches at all these different things. Yeah. And so once again, you got to be wise. How much will it cost? How much will they have to spend to get recruited? And I respect that question. Let me just try to answer it in a couple ways. Camps can really drain you. If they're local, you can maybe spend a couple $100 or more. If you have to travel, then you got to add in travel costs, lodging. If it's a week-long camp, you can just imagine how much that's going to cost. You multiply that by 5 or 6, maybe, that you want to have your son or daughter attend, and you're up into the thousands of dollars. You can't do that. What you need to do as far as camps is you need to pick camps where coaches that you as a family are interested in going to their school, that those coaches are there. Those are the camps you want to go to at those schools, or at a camp or a showcase where those coaches will be. And that's a good deal when you can go to a place where there are multiple coaches and a couple of them are schools where you're interested in. That you gotta make sure you don't just get that scattered approach and attend as many of these camps. As far as showcases, combines, that type of thing, you can't attend all those either. You got to be selective. Ask the right questions. Is this really a showcase that qualified coaches are going to be at? Is it one where it's respected and that it is truly talented, recruitable athletes, scholarship athletes that are there? Do your homework, because those are even more expensive than camps in most cases. You talk about tournaments, traveling across the country just to be seen in an AAU tournament or something like that. And that's a lot of money. If you keep doing this, if you're on a travel team, it adds up as well. You have to really make the choice and maybe say no at times to some of these tournaments and some of the travel that you just can't do it if you're having to spend all that money, because these do not guarantee you're going to be seen by coaches. They're there looking for talented athletes, but in most cases, they're looking for athletes that are already on their radar. And they're looking closely at them. They're spending their time. They're maximizing their time. If you can get on the radar of those coaches before these tournaments, that's a plus. And it's a better use of your money. Have a budget. Decide how much you're going to spend. Camps, showcases, travel, tournaments, all that towards this recruiting effort, and stay within that budget. So I can't answer the question, how much will you have to spend to get recruited? I can say it's less than you might think. Some of these so-called opportunities are not really great opportunities. If you follow the steps in contacting coaches and they respond back to you and you begin a conversation with them, even before they see you, you have begun that relationship. And you don't have to scatter yourself and spend a whole lot of money on tournaments and showcases. You don't have to do that. So it could be a whole lot less. And I explain that in detail in the book and also in past episodes of the podcast. And that final question, which is one you're going to be asking over and over again. The fifth question is this: what's our next step? What's our next step? That may be a weekly question. It may be a monthly question, because it'll all ride on where you are right now. What is my next step? And that's a big one. You need to be asking that. In fact, I would even take this and write it on an index card. What is my next step? What is our next step? And post it on the refrigerator or post it on the desk where you're keeping all the materials that you're using for the recruiting efforts. And take a look at that. So you're not floating. You have a direction. You have a purpose. You know where you're going. We talked about setting a goal for 365 days from now in the previous episode 77. But how about next week or next month? What is my next step in this recruiting process? Got to be asking that. Or else you'll float and you'll be in all different directions. So the first question is my son or daughter good enough for a scholarship? Secondly, do we have the time to pursue a scholarship? Third, how can I get my athlete on coaches' radars? Fourth, how much will we have to spend to get recruited? And 5, what's our next step? Those are 5 big questions you'll be facing in 2018. I want to mention at this point that on my website, recruitme.com, I've gone ahead and the RecruitMe system, which hundreds, even thousands of families have used over the last 15 years to get recruited, is available on my website, recruitme.com/system, if you want to take a look at that. If the book doesn't do enough and you need more, and all the resources are listed there on the website, I've got that. I've continued to offer it at a discount. As I did at the first of the year, I will continue that through the end of January. It's well under $100. You can take a look at that and want to take advantage of that. Wanted to mention that. And free, of course, is the chapter from my book, The Athletic Scholarship Playbook. I would encourage you to go get that. All right. I asked about 5 questions that you're going to have to face in 2018. And you may have more than that. I may have stirred you up and you've got more questions than that, and it's kind of set your mind off, and in your specific situation, I would love to answer your questions. If you would like to just email me, go ahead and do that. I respond to all the emails that I get, as long as they're not crazy. So if you're a normal person, I will respond to you. Email me at Jon, @recruitme.com. I have a link in my show notes. That's it for this time. That's it for our 15 minutes, and I'll talk to you next Tuesday.